In Hollywood, most franchises are born from ambition, big ideas, big budgets, big expectations. But every once in a while, a franchise slips through the cracks, not because it was meant to succeed, but because audiences refuse to let it fail. In 1984, critics rolled their eyes, studios lowered their expectations, and no one, not even the filmmakers, believed a crude comedy about loosening police recruitment standards would become a global phenomenon. Yet, somehow it did. This wasn't a film about heroes. It wasn't about justice. And it certainly wasn't about realism. It was about chaos. A group of misfits, rejects, and walking punchlines thrown into uniforms they had no business wearing, and somehow turning failure into comedy gold. One man spoke in sound effects. Another could tear down walls without raising his voice. And one recruit treated every situation like a full-scale military operation. Together, they became something no one predicted. A 7-film franchise, a Saturday morning cartoon, a live-action television series, and a comedy legacy that critics dismissed, but audiences embraced for decades. So, how did a movie almost written off as disposable slapstick become one of the most recognizable comedy brands of the 1980s? Why did the sequels keep coming, even when reviews kept getting worse? And what does Police Academy reveal about the era of filmmaking that modern Hollywood has completely abandoned? Tonight on Cinema Uncovered, we reopen the Academy to uncover how Police Academy accidentally became immortal. Every movie franchise begins with a gamble, but Police Academy began as a punchline. In the early 1980s, American cities were facing growing public concern over crime, law enforcement, and authority. At the same time, Hollywood comedy was moving in the opposite direction, becoming louder, looser, and more rebellious. Producers Paul Maslansky and Leonard Goldberg weren't trying to make a statement. They were trying to make something cheap, fast, and funny. The premise was almost insultingly simple. A fictional city removes all restrictions on who can join the police force. No age limit, no physical requirements, no background checks that mattered. If you could sign your name, you were in. What followed was not realism, but satire taken to absurd extremes. The script, written by Neil Israel and Pat Proft, leaned heavily on character-based humor rather than plot. There was no mystery to solve, no grand villain, just a training academy struggling to survive its own recruits. The tone was risky, the jokes were crude, the authority figures were incompetent, and the humor walked a fine line between parody and outright mockery. At the time, this was a dangerous move. Police-themed films were usually serious. Uniforms symbolized respect. Police Academy treated them like costumes. Studios quietly lowered expectations. This was not supposed to be a hit. Instead of chasing major stars, the filmmakers filled the cast with up-and-coming character actors, comedians, and performers with unusual physical presence. Steve Guttenberg was cast as Kerry Mahoney, the rebellious heart of the film. Sarcastic, charming, and constantly one step away from trouble. Michael Winslow brought a completely unique skill set, performing sound effects live on set, often catching other actors off guard. Bubba Smith, a former NFL defensive end, gave Hightower a surprising gentleness that contrasted his intimidating size. David Graff created Tackleberry, not just loud, but disturbingly enthusiastic about weapons and authority. None of them knew they were creating icons. They were just trying to make the joke land. Production was fast and relatively inexpensive. There was no franchise plan, no sequel roadmap. Scenes were built around visual gags, improvised moments, and physical comedy, the kind that didn't require explanation. The goal was simple: make the audience laugh now. And if the film disappeared next week, so be it. When Police Academy hit theaters in 1984, critics reacted exactly as expected. They hated it. Reviews dismissed the movie as juvenile, noisy, and disposable. Some even questioned whether it should exist at all. But something unexpected happened at the box office. Audiences came, then they came back, and then they brought friends. Word of mouth exploded. By the end of its theatrical run, Police Academy had earned over $149 million worldwide, becoming one of the most profitable comedies of the decade. Hollywood had made a mistake. They laughed it off, and that joke would soon demand a sequel. If Police Academy had relied on its premise alone, it would have been forgotten within weeks. What turned a throwaway comedy into a phenomenon wasn't the story. It was the people inside the uniforms. The film didn't ask audiences to believe in the system. It asked them to remember the characters. Each recruit wasn't just a joke. They were instantly recognizable personalities, exaggerated just enough to feel larger than life. At the center of the madness was Kerry Mahoney, played by Steve Guttenberg. Mahoney wasn't a hero. He didn't want to be there. And that's exactly why audiences connected with him. Forced into the academy as an alternative to jail time, Mahoney became the audience's point of view, reacting to the insanity rather than driving it. Guttenberg's performance walked a careful line. Sarcastic but likable, rebellious but never cruel lazy, yet oddly competent when it mattered in an era of over-the-top slapstick, Mahoney grounded the film. When he left the franchise after Part 4, the absence was immediately felt. Then there was Larval Jones, played by Michael Winslow. Originally, Jones was written as a minor character, but once Winslow demonstrated his sound effect abilities on set, everything changed. Sirens, gunfire, helicopters, entire riots, all produced live in camera with no post-production help. Directors began rewriting scenes around him. Winslow wasn't just funny, he was unpredictable, and that spontaneity gave the film's energy that couldn't be faked. For many viewers, Jones was Police Academy. Hightower, portrayed by Bubba Smith, became one of the most beloved characters in the franchise. Towering, physically intimidating, and capable of accidental destruction, yet soft-spoken and emotionally sensitive. The joke wasn't that Hightower was violent. It was that everyone assumed he was. Smith's background as a former NFL player gave the character authenticity, but his calm delivery flipped expectations, turning intimidation into warmth. Hightower didn't need punchlines. His presence was the punchline. No character embodied the franchise's satire more than Eugene Tackleberry, played by David Graff, obsessed with firearms, militaristic to a fault, emotionally married to his weapons. Tackleberry was less a person and more a commentary, a parody of excessive force, unquestioned authority, and police militarization long before those conversations entered mainstream media. Yet, David Graff played him sincerely, never winking at the camera, which made the absurdity work. Tackleberry wasn't mocking law enforcement. He was exaggerating it. The supporting cast completed the ecosystem. Debbie Callahan, Leslie Easterbrook, subverted expectations. Intimidating, confident, and sexually aggressive in a genre that usually reserved those traits for men. Laverne Hooks, Marion Ramsey, whispered almost every line, making her moment of assertiveness unexpectedly powerful. Captain Lassard, George Gaines, anchored the chaos with oblivious authority and unintentional encouragement. Together, the ensemble create a rhythm. One character sets up the joke, another escalates it, a third completely derails it. This wasn't stand-up comedy. It was controlled anarchy. Audiences didn't return for the plot. They returned to check in on familiar faces. Each sequel became less about story and more about reunion, watching how these personalities would collide again in new situations. And in doing so, Police Academy did something rare. It turned caricatures into comfort characters. By the time Police Academy became a box office success, Hollywood didn't see a movie. They saw a formula. In the mid-1980s, studios were discovering something powerful. Consistency could outperform quality. If audiences liked the characters and the budget stayed low, then speed mattered more than perfection. Police Academy was a perfect test case. Starting in 1985, the franchise entered what can only be described as factory mode. 1985, Police Academy 2, their first assignment. 1986, Police Academy 3, back in training. 1987, Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol. One film, every year, no gaps. Scripts were written fast. Sets were reused. Jokes were recycled and remixed. And audiences didn't seem to mind. Each sequel leaned harder into slapstick, replacing subtle satire with bigger, louder set pieces. Less story, more chaos. Instead of escalating danger, the films escalated familiarity. Viewers already knew Jones would make sound effects. Hightower would break something unintentionally. Tackleberry would pull out too many guns. Mahoney would bend the rules and win anyway. The predictability became the appeal. This wasn't cinema, it was ritual. As the sequels piled up, critics grew increasingly hostile. Reviews described the films as lazy, repetitive, juvenile. Some critics stopped reviewing them seriously altogether, but box office numbers told a different story. While domestic earnings slowly declined, international markets embraced the franchise, especially in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. Police Academy became a global export of American slapstick. Police Academy 4, Citizens on Patrol, marked a subtle shift. For the first time, the franchise tried to expand its world, introducing civilian volunteers and softening the edge of the comedy. This was also the moment Steve Guttenberg exited the series. Without Mahoney, the films leaned fully into ensemble comedy. Less narrative glue, more sketch-style humor. The franchise survived, but something essential was missing. From a business perspective, the logic was flawless. Low budgets, reliable returns, built-in audience merchandising, and TV potential. Even as reviews worsened, profits remained stable. Hollywood didn't need excellence. It needed dependability. It's important to remember the era. These films relied on practical stunts, physical comedy, real locations, real mistakes. Left in the final cut, there were no digital fixes. If a gag worked, it stayed. If it didn't, it still might stay. That rawness gave the sequels an authenticity that modern comedies often lack. By the end of the decade, audiences began to notice the repetition. The jokes landed, but softer. The laughs came, but slower. The assembly line that once kept the franchise alive was now wearing it down. And soon, Police Academy would face its biggest challenge yet. What happens when familiarity turns into fatigue? By the late 1980s, Police Academy was no longer a surprise. It was a routine. Audiences still recognized the characters. They still knew the jokes. But familiarity, once the franchise's greatest strength, was slowly becoming its weakness. The laughter was still there, but it didn't hit the same. The departure of Steve Guttenberg after Police Academy 4 quietly changed everything. Mahoney had been more than the lead. He was the anchor. Without him, the films lacked a clear point of view. No single character guided the audience through the chaos. Instead, the franchise leaned fully into ensemble antics. More jokes, less cohesion. The films didn't collapse, they drifted. As the 80s came to a close, the tone changed dramatically. Earlier films exaggerated reality. Later films abandoned it. Characters became broader. Situations became impossible. Consequences disappeared entirely. The humor shifted from satire to live-action cartoon. This wasn't accidental. The studio wanted younger audiences, family-friendly ratings, merchandising potential, which led directly to the animated experiment in 1988. Police Academy jumped to television as a Saturday morning cartoon. Bright colors, catchphrases, simplified personalities. The animated series was a failure, but it symbolized how far the franchise had moved from its original edge. What started as a reverent parody was now safe, predictable entertainment. The Academy had been sanitized. The final theatrical entries of the 80s tried to reignite interest by changing locations and escalating threats. Assignment Miami Beach 1988 leaned into vacation comedy and spectacle. City Under Siege 1989 introduced a masked villain and exaggerated criminal gangs. The results were mixed. Audiences still showed up, but fewer of them. The brand recognition remained strong, but enthusiasm was fading. By this point, many original cast members were repeating the same beats, playing simplified versions of their characters, clearly aware of the formula. What once felt spontaneous now felt mechanical. The Academy wasn't evolving. It was stalling. After City Under Siege, the franchise went quiet. 5 years passed. Comedy had changed. Audiences had changed. And the world that once embraced slapstick ensembles had moved on. But in 1994, Police Academy returned one last time. And this time it was different. By 1994, the world had changed, and Police Academy hadn't. The Cold War was over. Comedy had evolved. Audiences now wanted sharper satire, faster pacing, and fresher ideas. Yet the franchise returned anyway. 5 years separated City Under Siege and the 7th installment. That gap should have been an opportunity. Time to rethink the formula, time to modernize the humor, time to reinvent the Academy instead. Mission to Moscow arrived as if nothing had happened. The jokes were familiar, the structure unchanged. The world had moved on, but the franchise stayed behind. The idea sounded bold on paper. An international setting, Russian villains, post-Cold War intrigue. In execution, it felt disconnected. The humor clashed with the setting. The slapstick felt outdated. And the once beloved characters struggled to justify their presence. Even longtime fans sensed it. This wasn't decline anymore. This was closure. The box office numbers reflected that reality, marking the franchise's lowest theatrical performance. The Academy doors quietly closed.
What's striking about Police Academy's end is how unremarkable it was. No grand finale, no official goodbye, no reboot announcement, just silence. The franchise didn't crash. It faded. And yet, Police Academy never truly disappeared. It lives on through cable reruns, late-night TV, streaming rediscovery, internet nostalgia. More importantly, it represents a lost era of filmmaking, a time when comedies were allowed to be stupid. Ensembles mattered more than stars. Practical jokes replaced digital spectacle. Police Academy didn't chase prestige. It chased laughs. And for millions of viewers, that was enough. Critics never embraced the franchise. But history softened its reputation. Not because it was great cinema, but because it was honest. It knew exactly what it was. And it never pretended otherwise. Police Academy proves one thing above all. You don't need critical respect to leave a mark. You just need memorable characters, a simple idea, and timing on your side. Sometimes laughter outlives logic.
Interesting trivias. Michael Winslow, the man of 1,000 sounds. Known as a human sound effect, Winslow performed every single sound effect live on set. No post-production magic. Helicopters, sirens, explosions, even animal noises, all coming straight from his mouth. Director Hugh Wilson often let him improvise scenes entirely around his sound skills. Bubba Smith, from NFL star to gentle giant. Before Hightower, Smith was a professional football player for the Baltimore Colts. His intimidating size, 6 feet 7 inches, contrasted hilariously with his soft-spoken personality on screen. Many stunts were choreographed around his ability to look menacing yet endearing. Steve Guttenberg, the franchise's anchor. Guttenberg was not originally the first choice for Mahoney. His charm and comedic timing turned Mahoney into the character that held the entire ensemble together for 4 films. After leaving Post Part 4, the sequel shifted fully to ensemble and slapstick humor, a record-breaking run of sequels. There are 7 theatrical films, plus an animated series, 1988 to 1989, and a live-action TV show, 1997. Despite critical panning, every sequel made money, especially internationally. For several years in the 1980s, Police Academy was one of the most profitable comedy franchises in Hollywood history. The obvious but overlooked satire. Beneath the slapstick, the original Police Academy subtly critiqued bureaucracy and authoritarian systems. Characters like Tackleberry exaggerated law enforcement extremism, while Mahoney represented the average citizen navigating absurd rules. The satire is often overshadowed by the visual gags, but it's there for those paying attention. Cast continuity and surprises. Michael Winslow and David Graff appeared in all 7 films. Bubba Smith appeared in 6 out of 7. George Gaines, Captain Lassard, stayed in all films, becoming the franchise's most consistent face. The 7th film, Mission to Moscow, featured an almost entirely international setting, a rare deviation from the usual US-based shenanigans. International popularity. While domestic box office declined after Part 4, the franchise gained a strong international following. Certain countries, including Germany, Japan, and Mexico, made Police Academy staples of weekend family viewing. Fun behind-the-scenes facts. Many physical gags were improvised, including Hightower's accidental demolitions. The iconic Police Academy whistle used in training scenes was recorded live, sometimes by the actors themselves. Some lines in the first film were reused in later sequels as a callback, contributing to the formulaic humor. The theme music. Written by Robert Folk, the cheerful, brassy Police Academy theme is instantly recognizable, a piece of 80s pop culture nostalgia in itself. The theme was reused across films and even in the animated series. Legacy beyond the screen. While critics mocked it, Police Academy influenced comedy franchises for years. The ensemble-driven, gag-heavy, character-centric formula can be seen echoed in later franchises like Night at the Museum or Hotel Transylvania. Police Academy wasn't about prestige, awards, or critical acclaim. It was about characters who made us care, absurd situations that made us laugh, and a simple truth. Sometimes comedy doesn't have to be smart. It just has to be fun. Whether you grew up with Mahoney, Hightower, Tackleberry, or Jones, or you're discovering them for the first time today, the franchise remains a time capsule of 1980s comedy, chaotic, loud, and impossible to forget. So the next time you hear a siren, a helicopter, or a perfectly timed sound effect, remember, somewhere, Michael Winslow probably made it with just his mouth. Thanks for watching Cinema Uncovered. If you love untold stories of Hollywood, hidden facts about your favorite franchises, and deep dives into films both famous and forgotten, hit subscribe and join us. And don't forget to tell us in the comments, which Police Academy character defined your childhood or made you laugh the hardest? Because the Academy may be fictional, but the nostalgia is real.